Okay, so we've got our droid disassembled and we're at a place where we're ready to start taking apart the actual drive mechanism of the motivator. One thing to note here is make sure that you don't mix up the wires with each other when you're plugging them back into the board. Otherwise, your droid will drive backwards. But the easiest way I always remember is the longer blue wire goes farthest away from where the board sits, right? All right, so tools you're going to need for this part is number 1 Phillips screwdriver, sewing machine oil with an applicator if you've got it. If not, it's just the 3-in-1 oil, or you can just, if you have a little tub of it, you can just dip a toothpick in it and put it where you need it to go. You'll see here in a minute. And then white lithium grease. I just picked this up from O'Reilly's. The white lithium grease is compatible with the grease that they put in here to lube the quote-unquote transmission, the drive mechanism in the gearing that's in here. And white lithium grease is safe on like 99.9% of plastics, so it won't cause any overall damage. So 15 years from now, when you're looking to use your toy again, it'll still work. So let's get going. So first thing we're going to need to do is remove these 2 covers here that are on the outside. These cover the actual drive wheel. So we'll go ahead and remove those. Okay. Come on out of there. No, it doesn't want to come out. Okay. That's all right. We'll get it out later. Semper Gumby, always flexible. Just keep going. So we're going to remove the screws that we can remove or that will come out. I'm trying to grab them with the magnetic tip, but sometimes it doesn't quite work. All right. So we got those out. Let's see if we can get those. There's 2 of the screws. This one's got stronger magnetism on this one here. There we go. Okay, so we've got those screws out. You don't necessarily have to remove them right now because we're going to first remove the right side gearbox. Okay, so it's just 2 Phillips head screws. And then these are the type with the shoulder on them, as you can see there. Just make sure you're putting the right screws back where the right screws are supposed to go. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to lift the gear box and then the wheel, and everything will come out all in one unit. There we go. All right, carefully remove that. Put this off to the side. Okay, now let's focus on one of the gears because the other side is just rinse and repeat. So, okay, first thing to note about the gear and the wheel and everything, and this is a brand new Droid. This is brand new, purchased in November at Batu West. So first thing to note is there's a little sleeve right here around the wheel. Let me see if I can capture that for you. So there's a little sleeve and it does come off. And I've accidentally lost one once. And I had to actually machine down another piece of plastic in order to fix it, in order to get it, to replace it, because otherwise it was going to be loose. So one of the things that I do is I just kind of pry it up a little bit so I can get underneath it with my fingers and remove that. Okay, this is going to be something that we're going to grease. We're going to grease inside and then we're going to grease the outside too, but not till we're ready to reassemble. I always remove it and put it aside just so I don't lose it, because that would be horrible. Okay, so first thing to note about the construction of the gearbox is you'll notice it's kind of wet. Right, let me see if I can capture that in the light, right? It's wet. They're using liquid lubricant on it, and they really shouldn't be, because they're not concerned with the the longevity of your toy, but we are. So what I always do is, first thing I do is I kind of go in, just kind of clean up any of that extra lubricant that might be hanging around. Because it'll, once you touch it, it has a tendency to get literally everywhere. So I just kind of clean up as much as I can, right? Not trying to get it super spotless or anything, just trying to get that oil off the surface so I don't get it all over my hands. Okay, so now we've got the motor is held in by pressure. So these two screws here hold in the mechanism that pushes the motor down. One of the things that I've found is they're not tightening these screws all the way sometimes. So the motor will be loose and it'll move. See how it's moving? It'll move inside of there, and sometimes it's very, very loose. And what'll happen is that after a long time and a lot of use, that tends to back out more and more and more, and then you could end up with the gears not meshing down inside the gearbox like they should. So one of the things that I do is I always just make sure and I get them hand tight, right? Again, the plastic on these is pretty soft, so this one's not too bad, right? But some of them have been like 3 turns still to get it to go back in solid. Yeah, so it'll still move now, but it's much more difficult to move, right? Okay, so good on there. So now let's break down the gearbox. So first thing we'll need to do is remove the wheel. Hold that down so you're not just turning the gears. Okay. And I always just leave the screw in it. Put that off to the side. Okay, so now we've got our gearbox exposed and there's more liquid underneath here. So let's clean that up. Okay. So for reference in this video, I'm going to be referring to this as the top and then this as the bottom. And you'll see why here in a moment, because of the way the pins will line up. Getting the gearbox together can be a little bit of a challenge, but if you just kind of, set yourself up ahead of time, it can make it much, much easier. So we'll go ahead and start removing these screws. Again, I do not recommend ever using an electric screwdriver or any sort of, non-hand tools to assemble or disassemble your toys, especially when they're made out of plastic, because the plastic is very, very soft. It's very easy to strip things out, and with hand tools you kind of get enough of that feedback to where okay, yeah, this is tight enough or it's not. The electric screwdrivers that they use at like Droid Depot and places like that have a clutch mechanism in them that allow them to be very, very light touch, so it will not strip out. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't strip it out using that device. So see if I can get that one to come out too. No, it's just, I think I need to remagnetize that tip. No, it doesn't want to come out. That's all right. No, okay. It's because I'm on video, that's why it's not cooperating. So again, holding it by the bottom, just lift straight up, okay, and you'll notice that there's pins, okay? So what I want the pins to stay down here. So I'm going to take that pin and put it right back, and then line it back up again with the hole. because you'll notice it can move around when the pin's not in the hole, but once it's in the hole, you're good to go, right? Okay, and you'll notice there is lubricant on the gears, right? But it's all over the surface of the gears, where it does nothing, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to take our white lithium grease, okay, and I am going to put 2 dabs of white lithium grease on each gear surface, right? And what I mean by that is I'm going to put a dab here and a dab here, right? I'm going to put a dab here, put a dab here. It doesn't need to be a lot. It's like not even the size of a pea. I would say it's more like the size of a grain of rice. Is this the size of the dab that I'm doing? And then I put one here, because that's where it's going to spin on the inside of this plastic piece here. Okay, and then finally, I put a little dab on the top of each pin, just so if they do want to spin around inside, they can with little to no friction, or much less friction anyway. Okay, so that's pretty much it for oiling. So we're going to put the top back on. Oh, the screw finally came out. I'm going to put the top back on. Okay, just going slowly. We're going to make sure things get lined back up as much as we can. You can kind of just feel it. And then we're back together. Right? You should see, it's not sealed, so there's always going to be little gaps. Right? It's not a sealed gearbox. Okay? Let me just get some of this grease off the edges where I dropped it. There we go. Okay? And then it's just reverse of what we were just doing. Okay? But again, when you're screwing into soft plastic, you want to back out till you hear the click. Here, I don't know if you heard that click. Listen to this. So we'll watch. Click. Then you know you're on the same tapped screw pattern from when it was originally inserted in there. Right? No reason to trailblaze new screws. Okay, and then we're just going to go around, and I'm going to do that on each one. Okay, and I'm just going to get them just snug, not tight, right? There's no torque or pressure on this piece of plastic, so there's no reason to really, torque them down and tighten things up too much. As you can see, I'm just doing it just with my fingers because I'm not drilling I'm not tapping new pathways for that screw, right? All right, and then we're back together. So what I want to do is, I haven't moved that grease around yet, so I'm going to put the wheel back on now. Okay, wheel's tight, and then I'm going to move the gears. Okay, so move them around once or twice, each direction. Okay, and then finally, I'm going to take the sewing machine oil, and I'm going to put a drop down the shaft of down here. Right? There is a bushing in there, not a bearing. So it will help that to stay nice and lubricated for us. Okay, and that's pretty much the process for each gear, or for each gearbox on each side. So the other one is just rinse and repeat, right? So I'll show you that in the next video.